Are you ready? Lost in His Own Museum podcast presents
Video content. So, Lost in His Own Museum, episode 8, I believe it is.
It is episode 8.
We've been gone for a little bit. We've kind of just been a bit busy and a bit preoccupied. We're both in bands, and we've been working on some studio stuff and all of that. But now we're back.
Yeah, we are back indeed, much the same way as we're doing this. I'm sat in my home studio, Phil's sat in his. With wonderful technology with one of our bands, we've been working on an album which we'll tell you about in a bit if you're interested, because we know that's not why you're here to listen. But yeah, actually, the real reason we haven't been recording an album at all, it's because, like Sean Connery said last time about the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, that it was so bad that it made him want to quit acting. It was so bad reviewing it for you guys and having to suffer through it again that we wanted to quit podcasting. But it's okay. I've fought my demons, and Phil has too, and we're back.
Yeah, we're over it.
We are. And we've got a heavyweight to talk about this time. So this is a bit of a curveball given what we've done previously.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Maltese Falcon, which we watched. Now, the Maltese Falcon is a film from 1941.
Yes, indeed.
Starring Humphrey Bogart and Mary Astor and Peter Lorre and a few other sort of famous faces from 1930s and 1940s cinema.
And don't forget Sidney Greenstreet, sir.
And Sidney Greenstreet, who's awesome in this.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed his performance in this.
And I much enjoyed your podcast, sir.
I really enjoyed this movie. It's not the sort of thing that I usually sort of gravitate towards.
No.
It's not really my era when it comes to movies. It's not an era that I know a huge amount about. So, in terms of basis for comparison, I mean, aside from a few sort of Terry Thomas comedies and stuff that my grandma was into when I was a kid, stuff like Casablanca is about the only kind of basis for comparison I've got for movies like this.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I've not watched as many as I would have liked to have done, and I think I mentioned it briefly on one of the previous episodes when I studied film and media studies in sixth form and at A levels. There was a section of that where we had to sort of take a bit of a headline look at sort of German expressionism of the 1920s and early 30s, then sort of been one of the influencing factors of film noir. We looked at this film, The Maltese Falcon. That was my first exposure to it, and I've watched it a couple of times, probably in the last decade plus, since I did that course. But yeah, I mean, Casablanca again is one of the ones that I've seen, and then things like The Big Sleep and stuff like that. But I haven't really delved into it much as a genre myself, to be fair. But I've always really enjoyed this film. I think it's a really fascinating little story. The performances are great in it, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. There's just some fantastic acting. Humphrey Bogart, I think, is amazing.
He's brilliant.
Even though he was around before the sort of school of acting changed to like actors using the Stanislavski method and stuff like that. He was kind of so it's
almost method acting sort of thing.
Yeah, there wasn't as much of that happening at the time, and I think Humphrey Bogart was one of the first kind of people to really explore that and to start sort of getting really into the character on a personal level to be able to play it better. And to be able to give a more realistic performance as an actor. And the thing is, because he's one of the only people that was kind of exploring that at the time, his performance really stands out in this movie. I think ahead of the others.
He's amazing as well. We'll touch on it a bit later, just how many things this film has influenced as well. And I know we said it when we've watched Casablanca in years gone by. Me and you have watched that together. And you sit there and you look at, even just from things like from, being spoofed and lampooned to, out and out. Oh, actually, I can see when I've watched this film from the 90s, I can see that they took something from Casablanca in the 40s. And it's much the same with Maltese Falcon. It really is. So, should we have a bit of a natter about the Maltese Falcon? Give folks a quick reminder of the sort of the headlines of the plot, Phil?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll let you take that one.
Nice one. So this film's set in 1941, and we open up with a bit of a title card that's basically giving the background as to what the Maltese Falcon is, and there's a bit of history about it sort of being obviously from Malta and what its significance is and why it's valuable, and it just sort of sets the scene. And John Huston had actually storyboarded a whole sort of back in the day sequence for the inception of the Maltese Falcon and it getting to where it is and why it's become so valuable and etc. And they ended up cutting it out and saving a fortune off the budget of the film by just putting that title card in.
Oh, really?
But yeah, I really thought that Sidney Greenstreet should have narrated that at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, I think that would have been really interesting. I like the title card thing because it's sort of. That was a new thing as well that I think has been done a lot since, particularly in war films, and stuff like things like Gladiator, where you need that bit of backstory, but they just because it's just a long film anyway, you just don't have time to fit it all in. So like it's a brief explanation of what's happening at the time and.
Yeah, things like that, and Casablanca again has got it, and another film contemporary to this, It's a Wonderful Life, came out a few years later. Obviously, not a film noir. It's a drama comedy, isn't it? But again, that uses title cards and things at the beginning to sort of set the scene and do all that. But I mean, if you think about influencing things like Star Wars and things like that, like you say, opening crawls to set the scene, and how many westerns and things, but. We can delve into possible influences later. So as I say, it's the main story of this film is San Francisco in 1941, and we're introduced to Sam Spade, who's played absolutely fantastically by Humphrey Bogart. Seriously, what a character, and his partner, it's brilliant, isn't it? And we're introduced to his partner as well, Miles Archer, who doesn't, spoiler alert for an 80-year-old film, doesn't stick around that long. That they meet a prospective client known as Ruth Wonderly, and she claims that she's looking for her missing sister, who's involved with a guy called Thursby, and she's really worried about her sister's sort of safety, and that thinks that this guy Thursby's a real sort of fella to watch because he's a dodgy fella sort of thing. So anyway, Miles Archer agrees that he's going to go and follow Thursby that night and help to try and get Miss Wonderly's sister back. We then cut to the next day, and Bogart, Sam Spade's woken up with a phone call from the police really early on to let him know that his partner, Miles Archer, has been killed. So he then meets up with a friend of his that's on the police force, Detective Polhouse, at the murder scene, and tries basically getting a hold of Miss Wonderly to find out what's going on, because no sooner has she come into their lives, his partner's gone out looking out for her and he's dead. So... He doesn't manage to get a hold of her at the hotel, and then goes back to his apartment where he's grilled by the police. The police are sort of thinking that maybe Sam Spade's got some motive and might actually be involved in these disappearances and this murder. And that's sort of the running theme throughout the film, really. And I think it probably, if I'm looking at it really objectively rather than subjectively, I think it probably would have been handled better in a more modern film. Yeah, it didn't always come across to me that he was trying to clear his name.
They wouldn't have immediately suspected him, and
yeah,
because there's a lot of suspicion surrounding him. But like as the kind of the police kind of assume that as a private detective, he's a bit slimy anyway, and it seems like to them it seems obvious that he must have had something to do with it.
Yeah, they sort of really play into the stereotype of a private detective not being oh, you're not a real cop, or you were once a real cop, but you can't cut it anymore, or you're disgraced, and that's why you're a PI, and all that sort of, carry on. the police, when they're grilling him, also tell Sam Spade that Thursby, the guy that Miss Wonderly has asked them to trail, has also been murdered, which is why Sam Spade is now suspect number one in this whole sort of scenario that he's found himself in. So it's obviously news to Sam Spade, but the police thinking that he has a motive, so that they're sort of looking at him. As well as that, Miles Archer's widow has a thing for Sam Spade and thinks that he's gone and killed Miles Archer in a crime of passion so that they can start an affair. And it's really full on, really quick, is this film, isn't it?
There's a lot of unfolding plot points almost immediately. It gets very complicated very quickly. Which I like that in a movie because but it's complicated in quite an expositional way. Like it's not confusing. Like you still understand what's going on, but everything's really convoluted and the plot gets really thick really fast, which I really like about this.
I mean, a lot of it doesn't really go anywhere, does it? It's just sort of almost like whetting your appetite and setting the scene as to who Sam Spade is, really, by giving you these little flavours of his life sort of thing. And this is, so that there must be something where, him and his partner's wife have maybe not necessarily had a fling, but maybe have had a bit of a flirty relationship, or, that there's all sorts of precedents being set there. Like you say, he's got this sort of troublesome relationship with the police. We don't really find out why, but they're straight away on the, well, you must have done this. Even though the guy's supposedly his friend, he still thinks, well, you've done it.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to kind of explore his personality within the story a little bit, because they kind of do it without too much exposition. Like it's not too obvious. They manage to give you this insight into who he is as a person, and like because he's the cornerstone of the story. It's like telling the audience, right, this is the sort of person that you're putting your trust in within this story arc, which I think is a really interesting way to do it. And again, that's something that's really influenced a lot of films since. Is that thing of creating a character's personality through a series of little backstories, and they don't necessarily have to go anywhere because it still serves its purpose of giving you that.
Exactly, yeah, and I think that's the point I was sort of trying to make. Excellently put, Phil. Is like you said, they've not just gone, like the bit that you always say. Sometimes a character will speak in exposition to
to move the plot forward,
and but it's done expertly here, isn't it?
Yeah, it's done within a side plot. The side plot doesn't need to go anywhere because it's just incidental. Like it's not really.
But it completely serves its purpose, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gives you everything you need to know about the character. Which I love that. I think that's incredible.
Yeah. So later on in the day, after Sam Spade's had his grilling from the police, and he's really not too sure what's going on and trying to get his head round it, and he does that in such a cool way as well. Just nothing phases him, does it, throughout the film? He's always just cool as a cucumber, relaxed sort of thing. But anyway, later on in the day, he meets up with Wonderly, who actually reveals that her real name is actually Bridget O'Shaughnessy. She explains that Thursby was a partner of hers and is probably the one that killed Miles Archer. And basically, the reason that she's sort of getting into him is obviously she's worried because of this bigger conspiracy sort of revolving the Maltese Falcon, but she's really not forthcoming with information. And so Sam Spade obviously distrusts her, but agrees that he'll investigate the murders and sort of get to the bottom of what's going on, more to clear his name than anything else. So once he's spoken with Bridget O'Shaughnessy and he's revealed that he doesn't really trust her, and the fact that she's using aliases and all that sort of thing gives him a reason to not trust her. Why wouldn't she just come in and say, I'm Bridget O'Shaughnessy, I've got this problem and I need your help with it? She's had to go through all this ruse of using a fake name and setting a PI to go and tail her business partner by saying he's actually this horrible bloke who's upsetting her sister that doesn't even exist. And so later on in the day, we're introduced to Peter Lorre's character, Joel Cairo, who is just, again, another wonderful character in this. He's just expertly played by Lorre. He's,
He's a fantastic actor.
It's a really camp, over-the-top performance.
He plays sort of European weird guy really well.
I think that there's meant to be sort of a suggestion that the character's gay. But back in the days, with the as we will mention in the preamble ramble, as I like to say, that the film obviously had to adhere to like the sort of the American motion picture code, where there's certain things you can't put in films, and at the time depicting any sort of form of homosexuality explicitly was a no-go. So apparently in the novel it's much more sort of alluded to. But anyway, yeah, so Laurie plays the character very, very camply and sort of flamboyantly, and you know, there's a scene in it where he gets slapped and he bursts into tears, and you know, it's just expertly played. You know, all the caricatures you think of Peter Lorre, sort of, you know, it comes from this and Casablanca, doesn't it? Really,
pretty much, yeah. I mean, he did play Le Chiffre very well.
He's like the only good thing in that crappy black and white Bond film, isn't he?
Yeah, I remember seeing him in Arsenic and Old Lace. With the which is it's brilliant. It's Cary Grant. And it's about these two little old ladies who are his aunts, who are murdering people in their house. They set up like a B&B, and they entice like these lonely old men to come and stay at their house, and then like sort of mercy kill them. And they keep referencing this other nephew throughout the film, and it turns out he turns up and he's a serial killer, and he's got this doctor with him who kind of he follows him around all over Europe when he's, you know, murdering people and whatever, and then does plastic surgery for him every couple of years, and he's played by Peter Lorre, and he's just amazing because it's so funny anyway. But because you've got this like incredible sort of European weird guy actor, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, kind of. I think it was part of what they were sending up in the Cannonball Run with Dr. Nicholas Van Helsing.
Yeah,
you know, just that sort of typical, really weird guy. And there's this beautiful scene where they're arguing over how many people they've killed, because Mr. Serial Killer's got like 13 and the two little old ladies have got 14, and he says, "Oh, we can't count that guy, Johnny. He died of pneumonia." And the guy says, "No, he wouldn't have died of pneumonia if I hadn't shot him." Like,
oh, I still need to see that. I've obviously heard of Arsenic and Old Lace.
He's so funny in that. Like, he's so good.
He really is brilliant in anything that he turns up. So there's a little Peter Lorre appreciation bit. He plays Joel Cairo in this, if I'd not already mentioned. And he turns up to Sam Spade's office and offers him £5,000 to find the black figure of a bird. So this is the first mention in the context of the film, other than that opening title card, that the Maltese Falcon actually gets mentioned. And then we start to realise, right, this is the central MacGuffin, this is what everybody's after, and this is what's inspired the series of events, sort of thing.
It's quite a long time coming. There's quite a lot of like quite cryptic stuff going on before that.
Yeah, there is, isn't there? Sort of like nods and winks, and could it be this? Could it be that? I
think it's partly kind of it's like an exploration of what's going on with Bogart's character, because he's sort of trying to find a baseline of what's happening, and it's really hard to pin that down because everybody keeps lying to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's like, you know what I mean? It's working through this convoluted web of various different stories to finally get to the actual thing that's really happening, and it isn't just random crap that people are making up, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Joel Cairo, Peter Lorre, pulls a gun on Humphrey Bogart's character Sam Spade, and says that he then actually believes that the reason he's come there is because he believes Humphrey Bogart has already the Maltese Falcon, and he intends to search the office. But obviously Bogart gets the upper hand, knocks him out, and then goes through Joel Cairo's things and obviously finds out about him. When Cairo comes round, the pair of them sort of make an uneasy alliance and agree to sort of work together, and Cairo hires Sam Spade to basically hunt for the Maltese Falcon, because Sam wants the money, and he's starting to realise that the two stories are intertwined. So when Sam Spade later meets up with Bridget O'Shaughnessy, he's then telling her about Joel Cairo, and then it all transpires that they're all one in the same sort of conspiracy, and they know each other, and there's more awkwardness, and just the chemistry between those three actors, Mary Astor, Peter Lorre, and Humphrey Bogart, just absolutely fantastic in those scenes. I mean, Laurie and Bogart in particular, because they've done a few team ups as well with obviously Sydney Greenstreet, who we're gonna come to in a minute. But they just play off each other so well, don't they?
Yeah, it's a really good dynamic. Like it's a really fun kind of cast dynamics. It works really well.
It's
I
sort
think.
of like the sort of like the straight lead and the comedic foil sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, because like Peter Lorre is sort of like not quite the comic relief in the movie, but certainly like he's got that sort of comedic edge on him that.
Yeah, because I mean, the movie's kind of too dark really to need a comic relief. But if there was such a flavour in that film, it is certainly his character, isn't it? He's certainly one of the lighter elements to it. I mean, I always love the interactions that they have, and not from this film, but the one that always sticks in my mind whenever I think of Laurie and Bogart, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's the one from Casablanca, and Peter Lorre's, "You hate me, don't you?" And he's Bogart responds with something along the lines of, "Well, if I gave you any thought, I might," and it's just stuff like that. It's just brilliant. I absolutely love just the wit and the interaction. Anyway, so Joel Cairo and O'Shaughnessy gets talking that the fat man, who's Sydney Greenstreet's character, is in San Francisco, and Cairo becomes upset at that. He's not too happy, and we later find out that this is all just part of a ruse and everybody's in on it. And it's sort of like a bit of they're trying to play Sam Spade, but he's already one step ahead of them the whole time, isn't it?
Yeah, he's already figured it out. Yeah, he's going the extra mile to try and decipher all of this because he knows that everybody's lying to him. So he has to be one step ahead the whole time.
Yeah. So the next day, Sam Spade goes to Joel Cairo's hotel and he spots Wilma, who's sort of another side player introduced into this film, working for the fat man. And this is a young guy that's been following Sam Spade about. We see him sort of looking at him over the street in sort of like traditional sort of like, early 40s noir shots, sort of like, guy in a trench coat and a hat in the shadows looking up from a phone box or, in from a doorway across the street sort of thing.
That's the noir tropes, all the noir tropes.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, this film is where a lot of those tropes sort of came from before they became cliches and tropes and, all the things that you'd expect. This film was one of the jumping off points to start film noir as not so much a genre, but a movement. And, really sort of, like I say, just inspire so many different things. Wilma then obviously makes the introduction for Sam Spade to meet Caspar Gutman, who is the name of the fat man in this. And so when Spade goes then to meet Gutman in his hotel suite, Gutman's only going to talk about the Black Falcon, the Maltese Falcon, evasively. He doesn't really want to get into the detail, and again, sort of the fat man doesn't trust Sam Spade and sort of tries to set him up, and it's all just a bit sort of like they're both playing each other, but nobody's really getting what they want out of the conversation, are they?
Yeah, that's one thing that I did find with that is they underestimate Spade so much that it's almost a plot hole. Yeah, because you sort of think, well, if the whole idea all along was to string this guy along and play him, you know what I mean? If it's someone who's smart enough to help you find the Maltese Falcon in the first place, why do you think that he's dumb enough that you can try and do this to him? And in which case, why did you hire a private detective in the first place? And it's almost a plot hole, but not quite.
Yeah, I know. I kind of know what you're getting at. Yeah, so well, they're having this sort of interaction and they're bouncing off each other, and neither of them's really giving away their position. Sam Spade ultimately decides that he's going to storm out of the office because he's not getting what he wants, and throws a fake tantrum to try and get the other side and the fat man to reveal their sort of hand. And it works because Wilma goes after him, holds him at gunpoint and says that he needs to come back and meet with the fat man. So they then come back and make the deal, and the fat man's there, well, I'll give you 25 grand if you can recover the bird, and I'll give you another 25 grand after it's sold, or I'll give you a quarter of the sale profits if it works out as a better deal for you, sort of thing. So they then sort of make a deal, but then they immediately go and spike him in his drink and then leave him passed out. Yeah,
which is a bit silly.
So it's like everybody's playing everybody in this film, and it's just really, really great. He comes round obviously a bit later and finds that everybody's gone. He then searches the Sam Spade. He searches the Fat Man's hotel suite. He finds a newspaper with an arrival time for the freighter ship, the La Paloma, and goes to the dock to find that ship's actually been torched. Later, he finds that the ship's captain has been shot several times and actually staggers into Sam Spade's private office, clutching the Maltese Falcon. So obviously he's aware that Sam Spade's been involved and wanted to get the Falcon to him rather than to the Fat Man and to everybody else involved in all this sort of thing. O'Shaughnessy then sort of catches up and gets in touch with Spade and gives an address where he can go to meet her, but then screams before the line goes dead and does this whole sort of like really sort of dramatic, I need help sort of sort of again just setting the stage. So Spade makes sure that he hides the Maltese Falcon and then goes off to the address to find out. It turns out to be an empty lot, and then Sam Spade returns home to find that O'Shaughnessy's there in his doorway, and I'm assuming that she's gone to try and rifle his apartment because she knows that the Falcon will be ultimately with him. So when they're inside, they then realise that the Fat Man, Joe Cairo and Wilmer are there waiting for him with guns drawn. Fat Man gives Sam Spade £10,000 for the Falcon, but Spade then tells them that there's a price, and then they need somebody to turn over basically for the sort of as a price for it all, that they're going to need somebody to turn over to the police for the murders that have happened to Thursby and Archer at the beginning of the film. And so they're sort of negotiating who they can turn over, because Spade's like, well, I'm not going down for it, I haven't done it, so it's either going to be you, the Fat Man, Joe Cairo, or Wilmer, the bodyguard guy, the guy with the gun. And so they're all arguing the toss about that sort of thing, and then they sort of agree after some negotiation that they're going to send Wilmer and knock him out and leave him for it. So it's just daft, isn't it? But it's brilliant. It just worked so well. I'm not doing it justice, folks. You need to see this film if you've not seen it. But
it's all the backstabbing and the standoffs and like everything's like an effort to screw somebody else over.
It is, and it's all done with words. It's the majority of the action scenes, if you like, in this film are three blokes sat in chairs having a heated but friendly debate. But it's gripping, isn't it?
Yeah, it's strange because it's like I don't think I really fully appreciated until right at the end of it how little kind of violent action there was. Like in terms of like gun use and people beating each other up and stuff, but you kind of feel like there has been that. Yeah, there's a lot of like of verbal attacking each other and just outwitting each other. There's a lot of there's so many games. It's a very big. It's very much like a tit for tat. Yeah. Almost like an espionage drama.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it sort of all culminates at this point. So the next day, Spade calls his secretary and asks her to bring the Falcon to everybody. It's at that point when they actually inspect it that it's revealed to be a fake. And so there's again more hysteria from Joel Cairo and the Fat Man, and then they sort of get themselves together and they're like, "No, don't worry, good buddy. We'll go back to Istanbul for the quest." "Oh, thank you, sir. Yes, absolutely. Let's go." So them two bugger off as an iconic sort of screen duo, and they really are. Again, Sidney Greenstreet, Peter Lorre only worked together 3 times. There was this, Casablanca, and I can't remember for the life of me the third film, but there was another film that they did in the early 40s. But they're such an iconic pairing. To me, when you see one, the other needs to be there. But anyway, after they leave, Sam Spade rings the police and says, "Right, you'll find them 2 lads heading for Istanbul, pick them up on the way," sort of thing, so that they don't get away. In one of the things that I felt was a bit sort of out of the blue, but kind of the obvious way the film was going, if such a statement makes sense, was that when Sam Spade then confronts O'Shaughnessy and says, "I know you're the one who killed Thursby and killed Archer, and basically the murderer," she confesses, but I kind of feel like whilst she's the only person that could have done it, it kind of feels like it came out of left field. There was no real sort of like reveal or sort of like even though she's been a completely untrustworthy character, that's really my only gripe with the film, is that I felt that reveal just felt like a bit sort of... And then you get like the whole sort of, real classic 40s era sort of well, you'll go to Sing Sing, baby, but I'll wait for you. You might get 20 years if they don't hang you, but don't worry, baby, I'll wait for you. Oh, baby, but if you love me, you wouldn't send me up the river. All that sort of... Yeah. They have that sort of thing. But I really liked at the end of this film is that neither... Obviously, she doesn't want to go to prison because who wants to go to prison? But he doesn't want her to go to prison because he has developed feelings for her, despite all the mistrust and everything. And I think possibly that could be an extension of that gripe that I've got there, that maybe it's not... the romance between them, or the suggested romance, isn't handled as well as perhaps it might be now.
It did worry me a little bit at the end that she didn't put up more of a fight, because what it sort of smacked off to me was like, okay, this movie's already quite long. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're like running out of space on the reel. We need to start dialing it back. But it felt like she was expecting him to let her off the hook.
Yeah.
Or to like run away with him or something, or
And I think it's really it's the testament to Sam Spade's character again, that even though he's not necessarily a great man, he still believes in good and justice, and ultimately that needs to prevail. And I quite like that about the character. But one thing that I've seen it mentioned in video essays and in sort of story, books about the thing and articles about this film, is that obviously at the end of the film she's obviously taken away by the police, and she's put into one of those old sort of cage elevators.
Yeah.
And it's sort of obviously she's taken away and she's looking all down that she's going to jail possibly for the death sentence, or if not for the rest of her natural life, and
quite a dramatic scene.
Yeah, it's but then as the gates of the lift close, it's sort of like a surrogate for jail door closing sort of thing. And then as sort of like the lift's going down, it's sort of like her then descent, her fall from grace sort of thing. And I just think that sort of then, but he exits and goes down the down the stairs and sort of follows her with her, and it's sort of that sort of like like he meant what he said. He is gonna wait for her. The fact that he's sort of gone his way but she's gone hers, but ultimately they're both going the same way.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I never really thought about that, but yeah.
And I just thought it was just one of those things, and I'm sure it won't have been an intentional thing. It'll have been well, he needs to leave the building and she needs to leave the building, but sort of looking at it from a point of analysis, and it's not a point that I've thought up. Like I say, it's something that I've read and seen discussed, but it really does,
that does make a lot of sense.
It articulates a point quite well.
The film you were thinking of, by the way, was The Mask of Demetrius.
Ah, well, there we go. So that was the third film that they were in.
Peter Lorre and Sidney Greenstreet, yeah.
Yeah, but there's so many brilliant bits in this movie, and like I say, the cast are just of that classic era of filmmaking, just absolutely fantastic. I'm raving about this one, folks. You might have guessed. I've been looking forward to doing this. 2021, obviously, as well, is the 80th anniversary of the film, so we thought really it'd be a good year to sort of celebrate it. And like I say, it's a couple of times that I've watched it before, so I think this was like my third time watching it. So it was nice to come back to it after a few years.
I think this was my second time through.
Yeah.
One interesting thing that I've just found out is that it was the Maltese Falcon and Citizen Kane were both beaten to Best Picture win in 1941 by How Green Was My Valley.
I've never even heard of that film, but I've heard of both.
They were both nominated for Best Picture in 1941.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sorry,
that was just a bit of a...
No, that's a good little random tidbit, that. But, you were sort of mentioned before, and I sort of shelved it because I wanted to sort of get through the plot about the sort of the Mandela effect, for want of a better sort of thing for it. I don't know if anybody else remembers this. You know how to contact us on our various social medias. Get involved in those comments, or on Twitter or on Facebook. I remember this film ending with them thinking it's a fake, but then it been revealed later on that it was actually real. And I can see the scene in my head clear as day of Humphrey Bogart. Yeah, been golden, like it been a gold statuette that's been covered in something, and they just think it's a lead fake or whatever. And I can see the
I've
scene
looked
clear
everywhere
as
for
day.
it. I can't find it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I've dreamt it, but both me and you have never watched this film before until, we both said, a couple of weeks ago, right, okay, we'll watch it, sort of tonight, sort of thing. You watched it at yours, I watched it at mine, and, sort of had a natter about it afterwards. We both remembered that scene and was like, where was that scene? But
Yeah, what
like
did that happen,
it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it was a strange one.
Yeah, absolutely bizarre. But this film, like I said earlier, is sort of credited with really the sort of the jumping off point for sort of film noir sort of starting really, and again sort of other things that I've sort of read is a lot of the influence obviously came from things like German expressionism film, Fritz Lang and sort of Dr. Caligari and Metropolis and all that sort of stuff, and sort of you can see the influence of that, just like you can see the influence of film noir in films even up to today. But
yeah, absolutely.
One thing that I found really interesting is if you look at like pre-war Hollywood, sort of like World War II, everything's all really lit well, and the stories are always really linear, and there's always like take The Wizard of Oz for example. It's a happy ending, and I just want to go home, Toto, and then she wakes up, and you were there, and there's all that sort of stuff going on. But then you've got something like this where it's actually a really downbeat ending because nobody's won in this, have they? Nobody comes off it better.
No, not at all.
No. And a lot of that sort of was actually a conscious choice of filmmakers at the time to sort of reflect the mood in America and across the world, because of coming out of the Depression of the 20s and 30s, and and then going into World War II and everything like that, and sort of like the withdrawal of light and scenes being used at night, and sort of establishing shots and non-linear storytelling. And this was one of the first major films to do that. And I just think it's just really, really cool.
Yeah, it is a very cool film. It's like, especially when you look at what it's influenced.
Absolutely. Well, like I say, it's gone on to influence so many films, and it's again, this film itself is actually a remake because obviously it's adapted from a novel written by, I think, Dashiell Hammett, I believe, was the author, and then it was adapted in the early 30s as a straight adaptation, but wasn't really to the author's taste. And then it was adapted as a spoof in the mid-30s, and they sort of changed some of the characters around, but took the overall plot and made it like a comedy romance sort of thing. And that went down like a lead balloon as well. But this is the third time the source material had been adapted in about the space of a decade, and it is obviously considered the definitive edition. But can you imagine something like that happening now that's not a comic book movie?
Yeah, I don't think it would happen now. Like, it kind of happens with Oscar bait movies sometimes. Like stuff like A Star Is Born was like a remake of a remake of a remake.
Yeah, there's four of them, isn't there?
Yeah, and there's The Call of the Wild, which I think there's about 20 of now.
Yeah, did that get any Oscar buzz?
I don't think so.
I mean, I've not watched it yet, and I bought it because I'm a Harrison Ford fanboy, aren't I? But I haven't got round to sort of sitting through that one yet. But I'm not expecting anything amazing. I'm not expecting a bad film, but I'm not expecting anything sort of like, oh my god, give it Best Picture, give it Best Actor, whatever sort of thing.
Well, and Karen Gillan's in it, that did kind of sway me a little bit because I like Karen Gillan, and I saw, I heard a podcast that she was interviewed on, and it was just the way that she said it. She's like really excited about this new film that she's in. Oh, so what what are your sort of plans for the next few months? What are you doing? And she said, well, I'm going to be in a film with a dog and Harrison Ford. I thought, well, that's quite nice. It's like a nice way of wording that.
The new Star Wars film. Chewie, we need to get to Alaska.
Harrison Ford and a giant dog.
Yeah.
No, it hasn't been nominated for an Oscar. It has been nominated for a Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Screen Combo. And the recipients are Harrison Ford and that fake-looking CGI dog.
Fair enough.
So, yeah. And a World Soundtrack Award, but apart from that, nothing.
Oh, there you go. I was going to say I don't really remember it sort of doing that particularly well. I mean, Harrison Ford's filmography has been influenced by film noir. You only have to look at Blade Runner.
Oh yeah, big time.
that is, and just the aesthetic of the film, the
it's a
story.
noir movie set in the future. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And apparently, sort of, one thing that's sort of widely accepted, apparently, in the film community, which was something I only learnt this week researching this film, is that film noir as a movement, and for anything to sort of be considered film noir, is basically between this film coming out in 1941 and then the Orson Welles film A Touch of Evil from 1958. That's considered the noir moment. And then apparently anything after that is considered a neo-noir.
All right, that makes sense.
And so, because it's sort of it's taking its influence from it and stuff like that.
Yeah, these movements are never as long as you think. It's always like it's like golden ages and periods of history. Like the Wild West only lasted for 30 years. The golden age of piracy only lasted for 35, 40, something like that. And it's never like, because it's usually based around one figure and one person, one director, or like or one actor in particular, and just one person who's really good at that style of doing of filmmaking. Once the person who originally kind of pioneered the idea stops making films like that, then everything else is like fan fiction. It's just copying it.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's imitation and sort of homage, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like any martial arts movie made in the style of Kurosawa that isn't Kurosawa is just like knockoff Kurosawa. It's the sort of neo generation of that, of that sort of classic golden age of martial arts movies.
Absolutely,
it's the same sort of thing.
Well, like Kurosawa, I make mad films. All right, I don't make films, but if I did film, they'd have a samurai.
They'd have a samurai. I would make really weird movies. I think if I was a filmmaker, I'd make really weird movies.
Yeah, I think you'd be like not that he's weird per se, but a Wes Anderson type, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, because I'm such a fan of that, like Wes Anderson, Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan. I mean, if you combine the three, you're gonna end up with a proper like Frankenstein.
Oh yeah,
movie,
absolutely.
Like something really bizarre.
Well, Tarantino's another one that's influenced by film noir. Really, I mean, if you look at like Pulp Fiction,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it in of itself isn't, but there are influences of it being, and things like Chinatown, obviously from the 70s. That really is a love letter to film noir. But even things as recent as like the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Yeah, David Fincher's got noir down to a T. Really, he's done. If you look at a lot of David Fincher movies, even like stuff like The Social Network, it's got elements of that in it. The way that the music plays along with these big scenes, and this sort of cherry picked silent moments. You can tell it's quite heavily influenced by it. There's a lot of that sort of style in there. And again, Gone Girl as well. That was another one that was like that. The story of Gone Girl lent itself really well to that style of filmmaking.
No, there really are so many great things that are influenced by the sort of film noir genre, and it's brilliant how you can find pockets of it in comedy and in horror and in romance, and even the way sort of like like you say, sort of Peter Lorre's portrayal as a sort of one of the sort of the antagonists of this film, and to quote you from a bit, he's the weird European guy. It's sort of setting that whole sort of like archetype up for sort of like, well, the bad guy's got to be a different nationality to the hero, and they've got to have some sort of quirk about them, sort of like with Peter Lorre again. It's a terrible impression coming, but it's the voice. I give you £5,000 if you bring me the statue of the black bird, and
and like, where's he from? You know what I mean? He's like, it's very sort of, it's very early Bond villain. It's like,
that's because he was the first Bond villain.
Yeah, well, I suppose, but it's that same sort of trope. It's like just that sort of pan-European, slightly sort of like somewhere in Western Asia kind of accent.
I think he's. I believe he's Hungarian, but then sort of an American citizen sort of thing. From what I remember reading. But so many things, and again, Sidney Greenstreet. Like, this was his first film.
Yeah, and he's awesome. He's so good.
This was his breakout role. The guy literally waited until his retirement to do it, but he's iconic, and it's like, how many times does that character, a fat bloke in a suit who's the big bad behind everything, surely things like the Kingpin in the Marvel universe, and possibly even things like Blofeld, or so many things are influenced by that. But like, look at Spoof. Do you remember the bit in The Simpsons where Krusty's getting done for sort of laundering money or whatever it is, and they ring up the number, and he's like, "Oh crap, I definitely shouldn't have said it was illegal."
Yeah, it's supposed to be Sidney Greenstreet.
Yeah, it's definitely a send up of that sort of character, and just absolutely.
It's too hot today.
Yeah. Oh crap.
Oh crap.
It's just there's so many things where you can, like, say, see the influence of it, and just absolutely, yeah. I was when I first saw this in sixth form, I was blown away by it, and even though it's something, like I said, that this is in the 12, 13 years since I finished that, or at least watched that, I've watched it once somewhere in the middle of that sort of decade plus, and then the other week sort of thing. Even if it's not something I come to regularly, really is a favourite of that genre. I'm going to have to watch a few more on the back of this. It's really sort of sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole, sort of looking into it, dude.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. Like, I want to start watching some more stuff like this. But I didn't even get nominated for an Oscar for this, for Best Actor, which I'm very surprised about. Yeah,
just actually had a look, Phil. Like you mentioned earlier, it got Best Picture. But Sidney Greenstreet was nominated but didn't win for Best Supporting Actor, and John Huston was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Yeah, it was nominated for Best Picture. It didn't win.
No. I'll have to check out that one that won, though, because obviously I still haven't sat down and watched. No, well, neither have I. I've still not sat down and watched Citizen Kane, folks, and I'm sorry. I'll do better. But I have been meaning to since we watched Mank.
Orson Welles was nominated for Best Actor in Citizen Kane.
Yeah, well, that's kind of fair, because it's one of those ones, isn't it? Really, that is the sort of like real sort of like pinnacle of the guy's career, isn't it? You think Orson Welles, I suppose so, you sort of, or at least my mind goes to Citizen Kane, and then maybe things like Kane. Yeah, sort of after that, like War of the Worlds and things like that. But Citizen Kane is the Orson Welles Citizen Kane, and I think we've had a pretty good discussion on this one, really, Phil, haven't we? It's been an interesting one to visit, and nice to talk about something that's sort of out of the realm of sort of the comfort zone a bit. Yeah,
I think it's definitely something that's out of my comfort zone. It's not something I would usually sort of go out my way to watch. Just because of that era. It's not there's not really that many films that I know particularly well. But yeah, it is a really good one. It's nice to sort of see where noir came from and where it started and how it sort of evolved.
Yeah, I really have enjoyed sort of delving into this one, and I tell you, for those of us out there that maybe listen that are physical media collectors, things like the Criterion Collection and BFI and even HMV's premium collection Blu-rays, like boutique Blu-ray labels, put out some fantastic editions of some of these films that you wouldn't normally see on physical media. And a lot of them aren't available on your normal streaming sites. So have a look out and see what's out there, because there's some absolutely fantastic stuff, and this is coming from somebody who's only just starting to sort of really delve into the treasure trove of what's there, and sort of I would really recommend it. The version that I watched of this, because I know you've got my old DVD that you watched, but the version I watched was the HMV Premium Collection Blu-ray, and the restoration's fantastic. Comes in a really nice edition as well. So just for anyone who's a bit of a physical media aficionado out there like myself, then definitely would recommend that. Phil, is it going in the museum? I think we know the answer, but is it going in the museum?
Absolutely. It's going in the museum. Definitely going in the museum. And not that it's a question particularly, but
you have chosen wisely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So with it being, we're only 10 days away from the Oscars, and we're probably not going to get the chance to do what we were going to do initially, which was to watch all the films and to sort of have an episode on sort of predictions and just chatting a bit about the films, because I haven't seen all of them yet. I've still got a couple left to watch.
I'm going to say I'm even further behind than you, sort of with doing the album and stuff going on with the family and work. I've not had time to sit down and watch 10 or 11 sort of nominated films to see it all. Sadly, I've only seen 2 or 3.
It's all been a bit crazy. Promising Young Woman, I still haven't seen yet, which apparently is incredible.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm really looking forward to it. I've heard fantastic things.
The Father's the other one I haven't seen yet.
Is it going to go to Prime or Netflix? That, because most of the Best Picture nominees this year have been. I know there's not been any alternative because of the pandemic, but most of them have been streaming exclusives, haven't they?
Most of them. It's been the Father's been a bit of a weird one though, because it actually initially dropped at Sundance in January of 2020.
Yeah.
So it's been out for a while. It was released in France on the 7th of April. It's not out here until the 11th of June, which seems a little bit unfair considering it's been nominated for the Oscars this year.
Well, Parasite was the same a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So that was available in Asia and Australia and the US, around the sort of the time. And I actually did it. It might have got a select, a sort of limited theatrical run over here, but I remember not being able to get a hold of it on physical media on a UK copy until like July, and so I ended up importing my copy from Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it might have had a limited theatrical engagement over here, but I still can't remember whether that was pre or post Oscars.
I do think it's a shame. I am gonna try and get a hold of a French copy, if I can, of The Father, because it's apparently it's amazing, and it's going to be it's Olivia Colman's second shot at winning an Oscar, and I think she'll get it. To tell you the truth, I reckon she will get it. She's up for Best Support, I believe.
Yeah, do you know, she's one of those actors that's really, really come into her own, and do you know, she's great, and she's even though she was fantastic in Hot Fuzz, and was it Peep Show that she did?
Was she in Peep Show? I never really saw Peep Show.
No, likewise. I know.
Not a big fan of Mitchell and Webb.
Yeah, I know that there was a TV comedy that she was in, but I've obviously seen her in Hot Fuzz and handfuls of other things as well. But it's really nice to see her sort of step up to the big leagues. I loved her in The Crown.
Yeah, I
did.
Have you seen the Queen? Have you seen The Night Manager yet?
Not yet. No. I know you keep mentioning that.
She's great in that. She's very, very good in that. I think she deserves another Oscar. She was. I haven't seen The Favourite yet. I still haven't seen The Favourite because she won the Oscar for that.
She won the Oscar for that.
Yeah.
That was very good. Was The Favourite.
This is the first year in a while where I've really made an effort to get some of the to at least get the bulk of the films watched that have been nominated. And have you got any sort of any fleeting predictions you want to make? Just while we're on.
I think that possibly Gary Oldman's going to win Best Actor, but I don't know that he should.
I think Chadwick Boseman's probably going to win it.
Well, I wondered whether they might do that to him, but whether it would feel like a tribute rather than a... So that's always the danger, isn't it? I've not seen Ma Rainey yet, so I can't comment on the guy's performance. And obviously,
I haven't seen it yet.
He was fantastic in the Marvel universe, and I've seen him in a handful of other things as well, and was really gutted when he passed because I really liked what I'd seen of him, and cancer at such a young age, the poor man. But I really just hope that they don't sort of do it as a tribute because he's no longer with us. Sort of thing, but I'm really not in a position to comment because I've not seen it.
I haven't seen the film yet.
No, Sasha Baron Cohen nominated for Chicago 7.
He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, yeah.
So he's nominated for Best Supporting Actor. See, yeah. I would really like to see him win. That's one of the ones that I have seen so far. And
for Trial of Chicago 7.
Yeah, really, really enjoyed that. But that sort of film is my sort of favourite go-to film. Legal dramas are just top notch for me. Just even the bad ones, I can sit there and have a great time with. But that one certainly
it's a really good courtroom drama.
It really, really was as well.
To be honest, with Best Supporting Actor, I think that somebody from Judas and the Black Messiah is going to win it. Because there's two, Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield are both up for Best Actor. Personally, I really hope Lakeith Stanfield gets it.
Lakeith Stanfield is an absolute heavyweight talent. That guy is going to go far.
He's consistently making really good career decisions. He's been in some fantastic stuff. Even on TV as well. He was in like Atlanta. Did you see that? It was amazing. With
I've seen bits of it, but there's the bottle episode, isn't there, that won the award where it's just him and another guy.
It was spectacular, and it's another guy also played by Donald Glover, who wrote the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because Donald Glover stars in most of it, but he's this old guy living in a knackered old house with sickle cell anemia, and Lakeith Stanfield goes to pick up a piano, and he gets stuck there, and that's about all I can really say without giving too much of it away. But it's I mean, I love bottle episodes on TV generally. You know, I've seen some amazing ones. Brooklyn Nine-Nine did a fantastic one. How I Met Your Mother have done a couple of really good ones. Community did a really good one. With all the meta
Family
referencing.
Guy, to be fair.
Even Family Guy do it. I mean, the Bank Vault episode still makes me cringe a bit. I'll still skip it when I watch it through because I just can't get on with it. But technically, amazing. The one that Brooklyn Nine-Nine did with the dentist when they've got to keep him overnight and they're interrogating him, and the whole thing just happens in that one interview room. It's beautifully done. But the bottle episode in I've gone totally off the point. The bottle episode in Atlanta with Lakeith Stanfield and Donald Glover is just amazing. It's absolutely spectacular, and it's some of the best acting I've ever seen from Lakeith Stanfield, and he's which is in a huge sea of amazing roles that he's had, and I really want to see him do well.
I've seen him again in a handful of things, but he has effectively a walk on in Get Out, the horror thriller movie, and brilliant in
awesome.
that.
It's the guy that you remember from Get Out,
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Kaluuya was I believe the lead in Get Out, wasn't he? As well?
Yeah, he was the lead in Get Out.
Yeah. And he was obviously fantastic as well. Everybody in that film was fantastic. It was really refreshing horror film. But then obviously Lakeith Stanfield goes on, does Knives Out opposite Daniel Craig, and even though that film is a comedy whodunit, he's brilliant in it.
He was very good in that,
and it just shows the versatility.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a few up for the best actors. One's a bit odd. I think best actress is going to be Frances McDormand from Nomadland. That's pretty much cut and dried. I think it's probably the most depressing film I've ever seen in my life, but it is amazing. It was very good, and it might be a heavy contender for best picture as well. But yeah, best actor, we've got Riz Ahmed for The Sound of Metal, and I really hope he gets it because that film was incredible. But I think it's probably going to be Gary Oldman or Chadwick Boseman. Anthony Hopkins is up for it for best actor for The Father, but the fact that Anthony Hopkins is an amazing actor, I don't think surprises anybody.
No, he was nominated, wasn't he, a couple of years ago for Two Popes as well, wasn't he, alongside Jonathan Pryce. Jonathan Pryce,
that's a great film as well.
I still not got round to that.
No, it is good. Stephen Yeun in Minari as well is. Do you know what? That film really fell short of the mark for me.
I've like to say I've not got round to watching a lot of these yet, so I'm going to enjoy watching them over the next sort of because things are coming out on Prime and Netflix, and you're able to rent them and stuff from streaming suppliers and stuff. So I'm looking forward to watching them, and I think when we reconvene for the next episode after the Oscars, it's going to be really good to be able to shed a bit of light on it. I've been really slack this year, Phil, in not getting around to watching stuff. But I mean, Riz Ahmed is fantastic in anything that he's in.
Oh, the Sound of Metal is incredible. That's the best film I've seen this year, I think. In terms of how much I really enjoyed it. I think Nomadland's probably going to win Best Picture. I'll say that as a fleeting fleeting prediction now. I think David Finch is going to win Best Director for Mank. I would like to see Riz Ahmed win Best Actor, but I think it's probably going to be Chadwick Boseman for Ma Rainey. Frances McDormand for Best Actress for Nomadland. I really want to see Lakeith Stanfield win it for Best Support for Judas and Black Messiah, so I'm going to say that. And Best Supporting Actress, I'm going to I'm going to put my chips on Olivia Colman.
It's a heavyweight list.
Yeah. Original screenplay is going to be a tough one. Because Minari's up for original screenplay, and it's like, because it's bilingual, it's going to be kind of, I think it's going to have a bit of an edge.
Yeah, it certainly gives it gives another sort of string to the bow, doesn't it? It's something else that they've done. I mean, we never know. It could be another Parasite, because that obviously was won Best International Film. It won Best Picture though as well, and then it won a whole host of other awards, didn't it? Original Screenplay and Best Director as well. And that was, I don't know that, I think folks thought it was a contender, but I certainly don't remember speaking to anybody at the time thinking that it was going to absolutely clean up like it did.
No, I don't think anybody expected that, and it was. I mean, I only saw it for the first time just recently, and it was incredible. Without a doubt, one of the best films I've ever seen in my life. I do think it's a little bit unfair that Tenet's been snubbed. I know you weren't a big fan.
No, not mad. I think Christopher Nolan's made better, but I know it's been largely snubbed. But did it not get like an editing or cinematography nod or something like that?
It's been nominated for Best Visual Effects, which I think they were trying to avoid, because the thing about Nolan's movies is he likes to use as much in the way of like practical effects as possible rather than anything artificial. So I think it's probably like it's a bit of a kick in the teeth, because it's probably about the one award that he doesn't want, particularly for Tenet, because it's sort of the fact that it's been nominated for Best Visual Effects rather than Best Cinematography, which let's be fair about Tenet, like the cinematography is just spectacular.
Yeah, I cannot fault the technical aspects of the filmmaking at all.
Yeah.
And Christopher Nolan knows how to shoot a movie. He is still one of my favourite filmmakers of all time. I just think this one was a miss rather than a hit, but that's just me. And I know Chris, our regular listener, also feels the same, because we had a natter on Facebook about it the other day. Shout out to you, bud.
Tenet's been nominated for Best Production Design as well, but I think News of the World's going to win that, because it's period western. Yeah.
News. I've seen the trailers for News of the World, and that does look spectacular.
It's so good
visually.
Yeah, it's a great film, and yeah, like visually, it's amazing. I think it's almost certainly going to win Best Production Design.
I'm sort of wondering where, like in the production side of things, whether Manx are a contender there, because I mean, if you think of we watched that obviously pre-lockdown together, and it looks and it feels like a film made 80 years ago, like it's intended to.
It's been nominated for Best Cinematography rather than editing, which I think is interesting.
But I'm just sort of thinking production design as well.
Oh yeah, I think it's probably a contender for production design, but as I say, I think it's been nominated, but I think News of the World's probably going to win it.
Yeah, we speculated at the time, and we've not looked into it, either of us. So again, we're going to speculate again, but on whether or not they actually used like old film stock. So it was that good, wasn't it? We were like, have they used period accurate equipment to film this? Yeah,
I was wondering about that, because it even right down to the sort of cigarette burns in the corner.
Yeah,
it's...
Well, I did read that they were artificial. I know that he put those in, just to give it that flavour, but.
It's a Fight Club reference, basically, isn't it?
Well, I suppose, it's going to be a nod and a wink, isn't it? Because he's done that before. But it's sort of like, but even forgive what I'm about to do, folks, I'm going to muffle my audio, but sort of like when Gary Oldman's talking, it's like, yes, and we shot the shit. There were moments where the audio dropped out like that, like it would in a film that's 80 years old, and it's the attention to detail there was fantastic.
Oh, it's phenomenal. And, right down to the costume design as well, which I believe, best makeup and hairstyling and best costume design has been nominated for both. It does have the most nominations, I think 10 it got.
Yeah, it's got 10 nominations, and then most of the other sort of big hitters have got 6 or 5, haven't they? So The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Minari, Nomadland, Sound of Metal, Chicago 7 have all got 6, and then Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Promising Young Woman, 5, and
I don't think Manx going to win Best Picture, but I think it's going to walk away with the most wins.
Yeah, Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree with you, but I'm not too sure what will walk away, because like I said, I've not seen them yet, but I'm going to be really interested to go back. Do we want to talk about some previous Best Picture winners?
Yeah, I've got a list here of everything that's ever been nominated or has won.
So, folks, because we've been working on this album remotely, and as I say, I've had a few bits and bobs going on in my family. If you know me personally, you know what's gone on. But primarily because me and Phil have spent the last 3 weeks working on the early stages of an album for our band Leaving Overmorrow.
Sitting in a recording studio and not talking about movies, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, me at my end, Phil at his, the other, the other guys at theirs, and then bringing it all together to try and make something really special. We've obviously, this has kind of taken a bit of a backseat, and we've not reached out for a Q&A. So what we thought we'd do, given that we're in awards season, is we've just talked about the upcoming slate of films, but we thought we might talk about some winners from years gone by. So that's going to be our sort of last 15 minutes or so.
So what is some of your favourite sort of Oscar-winning movies, or Oscar-nominated at least?
There are so many, to be fair. I mean, like in recent years, like things like Argo, that came out in 2010, did win the Best Picture. 2012, sorry, and won the Best Picture. That was really sort of made for that crowd, wasn't it? Sort of just with the whole story and the sort of the pulling from real world events and liberating the hostages in a real life world crisis, and it just really was made for that crowd, wasn't it? I loved the King's Speech.
Yeah. That was a great movie.
I adored the King's Speech. I thought, don't get me wrong, I thought that both the two I've just mentioned were deserving wins as well. But I really thought that 12 Years a Slave was fantastic. I'm not ashamed to say I cried at the end of that film.
Yeah.
When Chiwetel Ejiofor's character finally gets back to his family and he breaks down in tears at I cannot even begin to imagine the emotion because it was a true story, that the real man would have been feeling at that moment.
That was a big year as well, man.
Oh, it wasn't it? Captain Phillips.
Yeah, the Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah, Dallas Buyers Club as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Dallas Buyers Club cleaned up.
Yeah, it really did, didn't it?
That's an incredible film, so good. And like Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto, just some of the best acting I've ever seen in my life.
It was really, really, really good, was that? But yeah, 12 Years a Slave had me in bits at the end of it, and I just thought that film deserves all the accolades it got. Spotlight was absolutely fantastic. I only watched that for the first time about 18 months ago, and it's the story of a newspaper uncovering a child sort of sex abuse ring in the Catholic Church in I think it's in Massachusetts. But it was absolutely fantastic. Just absolutely, just out of this world fantastic.
Yeah.
Really one of my favourites.
I was surprised that year that The Martian didn't get it. Because, between there was The Martian, The Reverend, and then, like, Fury Road and Bridge of Spies, which was quite good. The Big Short, which was good as well. Again, it was one of those years with loads of really good contenders. And to be honest, to have that as a deserving win against all of that is a real achievement.
It really was fantastic. I mean, I've not seen The Big Short. I did quite like Bridge of Spies, but not to the point where I was like, yeah, this is the best film I've ever seen. It's a good Steve Spielberg film. Mark Rylance did fantastic in it, and the rest of the cast as well.
The Martian, I think, is the best science fiction film in recent memory.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is great.
It's incredible.
I didn't care for The Revenant.
No,
I
wasn't.
Put that out there. I didn't care for The Revenant at all. I really, really thought that was.
It wasn't the thing that Leo DiCaprio should have won an Oscar for. I've always kind of held back. Yeah,
he should have won for Jordan Belfort in
Wolf of Wall Street.
And I don't, I'll never be able to prove it, but I feel that this is a make-up Oscar.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, to me, The Revenant, most of The Revenant, like at the very least, like most of, because there's some good performances in it. Donald Gleeson was really good in it. Tom Hardy was really good in it as well. But like DiCaprio, as much as he's an incredible actor, most of his performance in The Revenant can be summed up in the 5-minute scene in The Wolf of Wall Street where he's trying to crawl out of the country club to his car.
Yeah.
Because it's the same. Like, you know what I mean? It's just rolling around on the floor going "Urgh" for like 10 minutes. Like, but
Yeah.
you know, yeah, it's. I don't know. I didn't get it. I liked the film. I really did enjoy the film, but you know, I think that was a consolation prize for DiCaprio for not winning for The Wolf of Wall Street. And again, do you know what it is? Like that year, I think I think the guy who really deserved the Oscar was Matt Damon.
Yeah.
Out of the two of them, I would have given it to Damon if it had been up to me, but thankfully it wasn't. You know, in between as well, the year in between those two, 2014 was a mad year for the Oscars. I remember that because I remember it being the big sort of battle between the two biographies to The Theory of Everything and The Imitation Game, and it was like either Benedict Cumberbatch or Eddie Redmayne's going to win this, and it's going to be tight. Like it's going to be really hard to decide which one of them is going to get it, but so like it's going to be one of the two. One thing I was very surprised at, that even against American Sniper, Boyhood, The Grand Budapest Hotel, which is brilliant, it's one of my favourite movies, The Imitation Game, Selma, The Theory of Everything, and Whiplash, which again is one of my favourites. How did Birdman win that?
I'm honestly not too sure, to be fair. I mean, I think if it had been for my money, it would have been either Whiplash or The Imitation Game.
Yeah, I think I probably would have gone for... I would have gone for Grand Budapest or The Imitation Game. I mean, Birdman was really good, but it was like... It won because of the cinematography, because of the way that it was filmed. It was all done in like that the style where it's made to look like it's all one continuous camera shot, which was brand new at the time. You know, it was before 1917 did it. But
yeah, don't get me wrong. Inatoro is a really, really great filmmaker, really talented filmmaker. So you know, there are some expert bits there. I mean, American Sniper's a good Clint Eastwood film. I don't know that it's his best one. I mean, we've talked the other day. Richard Jewell came out in 2019, and it didn't even get a sniff of anything. And I think that whilst I still think that Parasite should have won that year, I think it should have been at least a contender.
Yeah, there's been a few times where it's like a few years of the Oscars where I've been kind of scratching my head over it. I mean, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri in 2017 lost to The Shape of Water.
Yeah, that baffled me. I remember watching that going out live.
Guillermo del Toro's brilliant, but that was bizarre.
Yeah, no. Say another one that I didn't really get that sort of felt a bit Oscar baity to me, at least, was The Artist. Do you remember the sort of the black and white, silent sort of where they brought that all back? Yeah,
again the same year as Warhorse. I mean, how does that work? So, I mean,
yeah, I mean, I really liked The Descendants that year. The Help was fantastic as well. The Help was really, really good. And
did you see Moneyball?
I did, yeah, with it's obviously Brad Pitt and the sports drama. With is it Jonah Hill's in there as well?
Yeah, that's the film that sort of sold me on Jonah Hill.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was always going to be sort of a good film because Aaron Sorkin's involved in it. He always writes really, really great stuff.
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
Yes, no, really not as well. But there's just so many, so many great films when you sort of look at this list. I mean, like, you know, going back to the sort of the earlier 2000s, we just watched $1 Million Baby last week for the first time, did me and Laura. That one in 2004 absolutely broke me. Absolutely broke me, Phil. Well, you know, there's without getting too deep and personal in it, there's problems with both suicide and amputation in the film.
Yeah,
and had no idea it was coming, and so I was like, oh, bugger. But fantastic film. Chicago was great.
Yeah, I quite like Chicago. I think Gangs in New York might have had the edge that year, though. Like,
yeah, that's. I mean, Two Towers. That shouldn't have been in there.
No.
That feels like pandering a little bit. But
well, I mean, all 3 were nominated. There was only, Return of the King won the year that came out, didn't it? Against Mystic River and Seabiscuit.
Yeah, but Mystic River would have been the pick for me that year, or even maybe Lost in Translation. Lost in Translation was absolutely fantastic.
Master and Commander was pretty good. It wasn't like a masterpiece, but it was all right.
I didn't care for that at all, but
no?
just some really, really good films.
See, I quite like that sort of piratey maritime history, though. I'm really into that. So, like, suppose that's probably
Absolutely. There's some heavyweights in the 90s as well. American Beauty, Titanic, The English Patient, Braveheart, Forrest Gump, Schindler's List, Unforgiven, Silence of the Lambs. What an absolute... We've got to do an episode on Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, yeah, we should do. We should probably just pick all the Oscar nominees from the 90s, because, like, wow.
Yeah. Look at that. They're like,
I've never seen them all in a list together.
Few Good Men, Scent of a Woman, The Piano, The Fugitive got nominated for Best Picture. Well, I mean, guys, if you know me, you know I could talk about The Fugitive until I'm blue in the face. Pulp Fiction, Shawshank, Apollo 13.
I didn't realise Shawshank and Forrest Gump were pitted against each other in the Oscars, because that's a real shame. Because under any other under any other circumstances, they would have won individually.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Fargo, Jerry Maguire, Good Will Hunting, obviously, LA Confidential,
Good Will Hunting,
Private Ryan.
It's one of my favourites.
Oh, and it just... Driving Miss Daisy, we're going back into the 80s now, but then, like, Born on the 4th of July. Rain Man, that's so moving, but so good. Fatal Attraction, Moonstruck, and Platoon, Out of Africa, Witness... There's so many good films on this list.
Good nominees in the 80s, man. Like Dead Poets, 89. Dead Poets Society is a great film.
Yeah, it's so good, isn't it? Yeah. Mississippi Burning as well. Have you ever watched that?
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Such a good film.
What have you seen from 2018? Because that was a year that was a bit odd for me. Because like Green Book is brilliant, and that, like, I think that was a clear winner. But I mean.
I have seen
the favourite Roma.
I've seen The Favourite, Black Panther, and Bo Rap.
Did you see Black Klansman?
Not yet. No, I picked it up when it came out because everybody was like, "You need to watch this film." But I mean, you've seen my film collection, mate, haven't you? I've got a to-watch list as tall as my house.
Black Klansman sold me on Spike Lee because I wasn't a big fan before that. To be honest, I wasn't that into his films. I always thought there was a bit too much like ripping off of Tarantino going on, but Black Klansman was unbelievable. Like if you want to see a really good performance from Adam Driver,
yeah, I've heard that it's absolutely fantastic. Do you know? It's actually a little bit sort of. I don't want to use the word overwhelming because it's not the word I'm looking for, but a better word escapes me at the moment. Looking at this list and just realising how many great films there are, and you could look at every year and then look at the contenders and think, why didn't that win?
Yeah, no, that's it. It's a hard choice. Like I do feel sorry for the sort of for the Academy sometimes for having to cast a vote. Do you know what I mean? And that, like. Because it must be so hard to make these decisions.
I always like to compare to like how the Golden Globes and things like that come out, because you know like then it's never identical, is it? Like something will sweep and absolutely clean up at one ceremony, and then not the other. Like even the BAFTAs as well to a slightly lesser extent. It'd be really interesting after we obviously we're going to hopefully come back. Well, we are going to come back in 2 weeks after the Oscars. And do an Oscar special for you folks, but it'd be interesting having seen a few more.
We'll try and have seen them all by then.
Well, yeah, I'm going to say that's what I'm going to try and do, or at least sort of get the heavyweights watched. But it'd be really interesting to sort of see, sort of be able to go, yeah, actually that deserved it, or maybe that should have got it, and stuff like that. But there's just so many great films here. I mean, like even in the 70s, like Rocky, The Deer Hunter, Kramer versus Kramer.
Oh, Deer Hunter was so good.
Cuckoo's Nest, The Sting is fantastic. Godfather, French Connection, Midnight Cowboy in the 60s. In the Heat of the Night, that is a fantastic film. Such a great film is that. But I mean, like, it were up against the original Rex Harrison, Dr. Dolittle, Bonnie and Clyde, The Graduate, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, like The Sound of Music, but that was up against like Dr. Zhivago and Ship of Fools, things like that. My Fair Lady, Doctor Strangelove, Folks, this episode has well and truly just descended into me and Phil sort of giving our opinions on Oscar movies gone by.
Scrolling through Wikipedia.
I hope that this has been, sort of something a bit more... we've tried something different this time, and as always, whenever we try anything different, let us know what works. We've not reached out for questions purely for a lack of time this time, but let us know if you like this sort of more unscripted sort of a feel, or not that we're scripted anyway.
Next time's going to be after the Oscars, so we're going to go. We're going to do it. What we'll do is we'll do a series of predictions each when we've seen all the movies, or at least as many as we can. We'll do a lot of predictions and we'll put a list out each, and we'll do like a point system.
Yeah.
And if anybody else wants to play,
I like that.
Get involved.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do. Stay tuned. We'll
see who gets the most right.
We'll put something on Facebook. We're gonna have to think of a sort of an on-podcast forfeit for the loser, aren't we? Should we ask our friends at Going Jack to come up with something?
That's a really good idea. Yeah, I think we should. Okay, so Ruben and Rich, if you could come up with a forfeit for the loser, that'd be great.
Well, folks, as we've sort of sporadically and not too subtly mentioned throughout this podcast, like I say, me and Phil have started recording a tribute album. We're in a band together. We're in several bands together, actually. But we should just combine them all and just have...
yeah, we should do. Have one big super band.
Blatantly Overmorrow's Buzz and Jim.
Yeah. Come on, Jim.
But no, we're in a vocal harmony group, an acoustic group called Leaving Overmorrow, with all the usual social medias. If you search for us, we're the only one. And we're building a tribute show at the moment to vocal harmonies in popular music over the last sort of 60, 70 years. And we're in the early stages of putting this show together, but it's something that we're hoping in 2022 we might be able to bring to small theatres and sort of make it an experience for people who like that. And we've been working on a tribute album to showcase some of what we've been working on. So what we will do on YouTube is we will put a little teaser up of what we've been working on for you in the coming weeks. So look out for that there. And for anybody else who follows any of our other social medias, there'll be bits out there. But the band's come together sort of remotely with all our own recording equipment, recorded all our different parts, and Phil, who does all the post for this and all the post for Going Jack as part of the Clumsy Alien sort of banner, has done a fantastic job of all the post-production stuff on it, and we're really excited to share it with you. And that's really been the reason for this sort of more dial-back episode that we've done today. But we do hope that you still think you've chosen wisely listening to us. And absolutely. Phil, I'll hand over to you to close out the episode, dude.
We do have one single out as the band as well already, which is on YouTube. It's a cover of If I Had $1 Million by the Bare Naked Ladies. So you can go out and find that. We were going to try and put it on the podcast, but Anchor are a little bit funny about covers, so we're probably not going to do that because copyright issues and all that stuff. But you can go and find that on YouTube if you just search Leaving Overmorrow, If I Had $1 Million. And that's about it from us. So we're going to see you next time. After the Oscars, we'll have seen more of the movies by then. And we'll give you a proper rundown of what happened at the ceremony. And
the film that we're going to talk about for that episode is the fantastic Best Picture winner, Parasite.
Yep. So remain indoors, have a pleasant apocalypse, and we'll see you next week.